Now, recent figures published by the European Commission reveal some interesting insights into how crime rates in Ireland compare to other EU member states.
Here to tell us more is forensic criminologist and former magistrate John Deane-O'Keeffe. Good morning, John.
Good morning,
it's lovely to have you here.
You.
So, across the EU, how are Ireland doing in relation to crime
So there
rates?
is good news across the EU. If you take all 27 states, crime generally is lower than it was, we'll say, 30, 40 years ago. And that's the trend of crime, that crime is going down everywhere. Notwithstanding that reported crime is going up, but crime is going down everywhere. So that's the good news. But since COVID, it started to spike up again within Europe. And in Ireland, it stayed pretty steady and, in fact, is lower than most EU countries, with one exception, which is serious assault. And I think that's the one in the public imagination that people are most concerned about, their own safety when they're out on the streets. And here within Ireland, it's very high. So we're about 4 in that EU listing.
In 4?
4?
So
yeah.
Do we know why?
Well, we do know why. How long have you got? So it's absolutely everything. You know, on the one side, you've got all the reasons people commit crime: social, environmental, familial. All the things we know that create criminogenic people are out there. We're not looking after people properly. That's the cake, if you like. But the icing is the criminal justice piece. In other words, we're not giving sufficient sentences for people to be deterred. And I speak with offenders. Yeah. I know they're almost saying to me, give me a boundary so I can push against it. Well, you see, what we have here is maximum sentences. Yeah. So you'll go out and you'll assault somebody on what's called an ordinary assault causing harm. And you'll
what
get
would
up
that
to,
mean? Would that be like those attacks in the street or something like that we've seen, where someone is in a brawl in a fight?
Yeah, it could be quite serious. And you'll get up to a maximum of 5 years. But the reality is it's not going to be 5 years. The reality is going to be 1, because we've maximum sentences that are never reached. The same is true then of knife crime. OK, it's gone from 5 to 7. But how many times are people getting 7 years for crime? Almost never. So what are we going to do about this? The way to do that is to put in mandatory minimum sentences to show this minimum level of disapproval that people have for crime in this country, regardless of case circumstances.
But we talk here to Irish prison officers. We have spoken before to politicians who were involved in this, kind of going, OK, well, jail isn't working. First of all, they're overstretched.
Crowded.
You know, they're overcrowded. They're letting people out. We don't have proper resources, because it's all meant to be about rehabilitation, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it meant to be about
hang on a second. Rehabilitation, let's just go on that word. Rehabilitation assumes you're habilitated in the first place. What are you rehabilitating back to? Absolutely nothing, because we haven't got the social, the environmental, the familial. We treat people as if they are othered, and we treat them and their families and their parents all their lives like that. And we say, now we need to give you a couple of courses and you're going to be fine in prison. Are you kidding me? Prison is the place they learn things. Prison is the place they learn crime. Yeah. Having said all that, we have to, at the same time, incarcerate people for crimes that are unacceptable to us. And we have to be happy enough to do that while at the same time look after their needs. The problem now is, Muireann, we're not doing either. So we're falling between two stools. We don't have criminal justice that works because there's all these maximum sentences. And, prisoners don't think, or offenders rather, don't think they're going to be in and out. And they are going to be in and out. I mean, I see them. They're in and out. And I've physically seen them laughing at the system. But you know what? There's also a bit of them going, I kind of want to know what my boundaries are. I don't have them. And the boundaries are in these minimum sentences. So here's an idea. If you're going to go out and assault somebody for your first offence, you're going to get a 2-year minimum period. If you're going to do it again, you're going to get 5 years. If you're going to do it again, you're going to get 10 years. I'm telling you, that would soften their cough. Does that cure the crime problem? Absolutely not. But it resolves the immediate issues and it gets that conversation
But the prisons then that are so overcrowded now would be just stretched to capacity.
Well, that's absolutely right. And guess what? We have to build another one. Now, I'm not going to keep building prisons. That's going to be the idea. But you have to accommodate this. And there will be an issue with prisoner space. There is now. Up in Mountjoy, guys up there watching this now, there's 2 to a cell. That was all meant to be abandoned. And now there's 2 to every cell. People need to see the conditions these prisoners are living in as well. That's another issue.
So are the government looking at any of this?
They are. I think Jim O'Callaghan is beginning to have that national conversation. It's a bit of a cliche, but he's beginning to have that conversation about what can we do about these people? Where can we put them and how can we manage them? And he's beginning to think, you know what? You can do both. The problem with Ireland, we were talking about this earlier, is that everything is between right and left. You're either on that side, hang 'em, flog 'em, or you're on the other side, just sing Kumbaya and we'll all have a hug. Of course, there is this place down the middle that is decent towards them, but decent towards the main population as well.
so we've got the GRA conferences that are starting this week. Of course, we just mentioned Drew Harris hasn't been invited. Minister Jim O'Callaghan isn't going to be there either. We've got rank and file Gardaí saying that they feel completely and utterly constrained. They're tied up by red tape. They don't know they can't pursue serious criminals, is what they're saying these days. So much is happening on scramblers and on electric bikes. And they're like, we can't go after them anymore. And also, and this is being said by Garda forces around the globe, this filming epidemic as well. And they're like, well, you can't do anything. So are we constraining our Gardaí?
Of course we are constraining our Gardaí, but it's this balance, isn't it, between giving people the rights on the street, of course, when they're arrested and so on, and making sure that the Gardaí can be enforced. Just you mentioned something there about this mobile film. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a constitutional right.
Exactly.
You have to be able to do it. However, there is a new law which has come into Florida called HALO's law, which means you have to be within 10 metres of the event so that you're not disturbing the arrest or whatever it might be. You can still film, but you're not going to get in the way and interrupt the whole event and then bring on more trouble. Things like that need to be looked at. We need to look after people's constitutional rights, but at the same time, we have to look after the police. We know about those scramblers. We know about those scooters. It's an absolute joke. I mean, but nobody's calling it out. There's guys going up and down wrong ways. They're doing wheelies. They're a danger, and the guards will not and cannot chase them. And they do not, so they're running amok. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate this, but there is a lawlessness within Dublin and indeed other cities around the country.
And I've seen it. And I've seen them going in on those bikes into shopping centres, into shops, like robbing stuff, straight back out in them. And I said to the guy at the door, and he said, I can't do anything about it. He said, my life, I value my life. And he says, we call the police 3-4 times a day and they don't even bother.
So what do we do with that? We need to start just saying, listen, for certain offences, guys, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get a minimum sentence. That seeps down eventually because the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Going out in the scooter, pulling the hood up, doing the wheelie, it's just not worth it. Even if you're 17 and you're feeling like this is the only life I have. Oh, I don't want to go to prison for 2 years. Nobody wants to do it.
Yeah, and especially with what's going on with burglary in rural areas as well. 0896 111 111. We'd love to hear from you in relation to crime in Ireland, how you think that we're doing and what it's like in your local area if you are feeling those sort of constraints and pressures. As always, John Deane-O'Keeffe, criminologist, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
We'll see you back here after this short break.